welcome everyone to Nova Scribes. A little bit about Nova Scribes. Let me go ahead and switch my my screen around. And Lauren, go ahead and take yourself off mute because you are my guinea pig, for lack of a better word. Can you see the PowerPoint?
I can, yes.
Awesome. So you can put yourself on mute. I don't think if there's any challenges, feel free to use the text or the chat feature, or go ahead and call something out and just take yourself off mute and do it that way. You were the only person that's dialing remotely for this. But we'll go ahead and get started now. So welcome everyone to Nova Scribes. My name is Brian Tarallo. I will be your host this evening. A little bit about Nova Scribes before we get started. Nova Scribes is an open forum for visual practitioners to share their knowledge. We are anyone who uses visuals in order to move others. So that is graphic facilitators, graphic recorders, scribes, sketchnoters, video scribers, UX designers, and visual consultants. We have organized classes, graphic jams, open spaces, and now webinars to do skill shares and learn from one another. A few things about our upcoming Nova Scribe. So on May 2nd, we are going to be pleased to host Kevin Reese, who is going to be taking us through an activity on kinetic sculpture. Those of you that participated in the 2016, I want to say it was, maybe it was 2017 IFVP here in DC, 2017, thanks Mateo. You may remember the kinetic sculpture event that he took us through. May 9th, we're going to be pleased to host Trent Wake Night at location TBD. It is at the Clearing, thank you Mateo. So it's going to be at Clearing on his unique comic style of graphic recording. June 6th, we're going to be doing Graphic Recording 101. Some of you that I can see have already been at Graphic Recording 101. And then June 20th, we're going to be doing one on visual design thinking. So some of you, design thinkers, you may be really interested in that one. That one is going to be hosted by our own Aaron Gordon. So we're very excited about that one. So that's what's coming up. Tonight, we're scheduled to go for 2 hours. Is that right, Frankie? Ish. Or an hour. We can do it for an hour. We can do it for an hour. But tonight, I'm really excited to introduce somebody that I have admired for a long time in this field, Frankie Abralind. And I'm going to go ahead and just share that video real quick so you can take a look at Frankie. So we'll spotlight that just for a second before we go over to the PowerPoint. So a little bit about Frankie Abralind. He is the executive director of Poets in Residence, which is an organization that he started while working as an experienced designer at Sibley's Memorial Hospital Innovation Hub. He had been writing poems for strangers on the streets of Washington, D.C. for years under the Free Custom Poetry banner. He relishes the overlap of human-centered design with listener poet work, listening to uncover the truths and help people feel understood and help themselves understand, okay? And so without further ado, well, let me just do this really briefly, a little bit about Zoom as the platform. So those of you that have dialed in using Zoom, please mute yourself if not talking. We will be recording this so that others can take a look later. You will be muted by design. You can either use Zoom to unmute yourselves, or you can use *6 if you're dialed in by phone. I'm going to be taking most of the questions on chat, so I will be keeping an eye on that and translating that out to Frankie, and then we can open it up later for questions. We're also going to be putting any useful links or resources that Frankie may share into the chat, which we can save later, okay? So without any further ado, anything else? You ready to go ahead and get started? Oh yeah, that, sorry, I got to share this. So this is a really cool thing, and I'm going to come around to the camera. Frankie, among other things, he is also the designer of Brain Spin, which is a very interesting game, and I actually use this for a lot of facilitations. This is a pretty cool thing that you can do. Let me just show you. So it's a lot of random shapes and objects, and so you can use this to say, pick a symbol that represents, for example, today's outcomes, or you can do back-to-back drawing with this, or you can do like a doodle pass with this, if you're familiar with those as energizers. But it's a series of random symbols that have tons of use in a facilitation or a group setting. I'll have to geek out on the ways that I've completely destroyed your initial intent for Brain Spin, okay? So he is the designer of Brain Spin. I highly recommend it, very useful tool, okay? Anything else? Thank you for the reminder on that. Yeah, and so let me do that. Are you the guy to do that, Frankie? All right, so I'm gonna go on mute and I'll turn it over to Frankie.
I'm Frankie, and I am excited to be speaking tonight. I'm also a member of the location of tonight's event, which is WeWork here on 7th Street. Props to Courtney sitting over here, our community manager. It's a really wonderful place. It's a co-working platform, I think that they say now. But I just sit right over there every day, and I love it here. So very excited to be here. I am the executive director of this nonprofit, Poets in Residence. This is an organization that I started in December, so it's very new. You are getting in on the ground floor. And Poets in Residence is all about listening. It's all about empathetic listening. We bring listener poets to hospitals to promote patient safety and nursing resilience and physician well-being through listening. The main thing we do is we send poets to hospitals. And this is what it looks like. We bring these listener poets to hospitals. The typical arrangement is the poet is there every single day for a month, sitting in a public space and talking to people who work in the hospital. We focus on hospital staff. And in this example, you can see one of our wonderful poets, Elle, last summer. Elle Klassen was at Sibley Memorial Hospital. Here she's talking with Buzz, who's a physical therapist. She's sitting in the cafeteria. We have a sign that says, oftentimes poet in residence or just free custom poetry. And the poet has a typewriter, which serves as a sort of a visual cue that that something is happening here. And people come up and talk. It started from a project that I was doing in the Innovation Hub. I worked for Sibley Memorial Hospital in the Innovation Hub as lead designer for several years. And you can see me here with a couple of my colleagues. We had a little book club about this book, This is Service Design Doing. Has anyone seen this book before? It's a really fantastic reference for design thinking, service design, experience design, the kind of work that I was doing. Some absolute heroes wrote this book. But every day, our team worked with frontline staff who are coming in to say, there's things we can do better in healthcare, and I want to be a design champion for that. How do I help? How can I make this innovation happen? And so my work was to provide design support and design coaching. Well, for several years, I've been doing this art project on the National Mall, writing free poems for people. I would just go down on the weekends. I would bring a couple of typewriters and always bring a friend and put up a sign that said free custom poetry. And people walking past on the National Mall, there's this incredible international diversity. Probably 90% of the people who are strolling around the National Mall on a Saturday afternoon are not from DC. Many of them from other countries. And they would walk past and they would see the sign, and some of them would stop. And I'd say, what are you doing? What is this about? And I would say, we're writing poems for people. May I write you a poem? And they'd say, sure. And for me, initially, it was just this fun thing that I knew how to do. I knew how to write a poem. And it was a sort of a generosity. I never accepted tips. I just did it as a gift, just as a fun way to connect with other people on the National Mall in my city. And it was fun. I would have conversations with people like this person, as a student at Gallaudet University. She said, hey, it's a beautiful day. You're doing something fabulous. Well, write me a poem about what you're doing. And I said, sure. And I wrote her this poem about free custom poetry. A little meta, but then the next person that I talked to, you can see, I kept on doing this weekend after weekend, and I was invited to do it in a salon in somebody's house in Mount Pleasant here in Washington, D.C. I was sitting in an upstairs room as people came in to look at art and hear musicians, and I was sitting at a little table writing poems for people. And this person came up and she said, "Oh, can you write a poem about, my tortured love life?" And I said, "Sure, tell me about it." And she said, "Well, I'm in love with this guy at work, and I can't stop thinking about him." And I said, "Well, how do you feel about this?" And she said, "Oh, I said, it's my tortured love life. I can't handle it. It's a terrible idea." I said, "Why is it such a terrible idea? A lot of times you meet people at work, right? You build these relationships." She said, "Yeah, well, my boss would hate it. And I really love my boss. I love my job. So I think I probably won't do anything about it." I said, "What would happen if you did do something about it?" She said, "Oh, well, we could fall in love and get married and probably have children." I said, "Oh." I said, "Well, have you ever been in a situation like this before?" She said, "No." I said, "Well, is there any reason that maybe you shouldn't do it besides your boss would get mad?" And she's like, "Honestly, no." "Oh, yeah. I have a boyfriend, actually. So I need to talk to him about that. Probably should." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I wrote a poem for her. And then she said, "Thank you so much. Can you please, if you're going to post this, can you somehow, anonymize me? Because I'm not really, I need some time to talk to my boyfriend to probably not have that happening at the same time." Pretty soon, I realized that the gift I was giving people was not actually the poem. It was the feeling heard. And I had a lot of powerful conversations, not just entertaining, but like this person that I talked to at Sibley Hospital, sitting in a hospital because my boss at the hospital, at the Innovation Hub, found out what I was doing on the weekends and said, "This is such a great fit for the hospital. Why don't you try it here?" And I did, and it was just a smash hit. What surprised me was I thought I would be doing it for patients. I thought we're a hospital, we serve patients. That's what hospitals are for. They take care of people. Half the people that came up to talk to me were staff. And they were not always heavy conversations, but often these people that we talk to, people that I talk to as a poet, I say, "What should the poem be about?" Almost every person has something immediately. They'll say, "My daughter," or "This thing that happened to me this morning," or "The trip that I'm about to take with my dad." And they wanted someone to talk about it with. Every once in a while, that person who's sat down, that person who has self-selected and come over to talk to me is still a little bit intimidated, a little bit shy. They've still got their shields up. And they'll say, "Oh, write something about a beautiful spring day," or "Write something about the pizza that I'm eating." But when they saw that I was listening so deeply, when they quickly determined that I was honoring what they're saying, that conversation might change. Like, "Oh, you know what? The pizza, can we talk about cancer? Because I have it. And it makes my son really nervous. And I'm worried about my son and the burden that he's taking." That feeling heard was the gift that I was giving people. I talked to somebody who was a doctor. And she afterwards said, "This experience was so powerful for me because as a doctor, my job is to listen to people and nobody's job is to listen to me." And she said, "When the poet listened to me, it gave me a feeling of joy in my heart that I haven't felt before. Maybe this is what therapy feels like. I don't know, but I know that at the end of a therapy session, you don't get a piece of unique art. And I love that. And in fact, I produced a collection of poems and I put that testimonial in the front of it because it's kind of multi-layered. Like one thing is she's saying a really nice thing that makes me feel good about the organization that I'm starting. It's like very affirming. Another thing she's saying is, oh, you get a piece of art at the end of this therapy session, which we're not therapists, but that's a kind of a cool idea. But more surprising to me is she says, maybe this is what therapy is like. I don't know. She's a doctor working in a hospital in like a place that is just replete with trauma. And she doesn't go to therapy? Like everybody should go to therapy. Everybody should go to therapy. It's awesome. My gosh, for so many reasons. But this person doesn't. I don't know why she doesn't. I think a lot of people don't because there's a stigma around mental health issues that people think, oh, I don't want to admit that I need help. But somehow this person was comfortable talking to a poet about something that they might have talked with a therapist about. It makes me think of a dental clinic that I heard about in rural Virginia. And this guy had set up, he was a psychologist. He got a big grant to go and do rural mental health with people in Appalachia. And he set up this mental health clinic. And nobody came. Like very, very few. And he had lots of money, he had talent, he had a place. They're like, hey, free mental health services. We know you need it. Everybody's like, that's cool. Nah, I probably will just watch football today. And then he went and he talked with his colleagues and he said, how are we supposed to get people, we got to spend this money and do the good work that the money is designed for. And so he hired a bunch of dentists. And he put up signs that said free dental clinic. And everybody's like, well, I can give you a free dental clinic. I got this thing, can you take a look at it? And they'd come in and there would be a dentist in the dentist chair and they're working on it and take care of people's teeth. And he'd come along and he'd say, hey, while you're here, we also have mental health services. And people are like, you know what? I'll give it a try. I'm here already anyway. I'll come over when I'm done with the dentist. And because of that, they got a whole lot of people in there. I sometimes think that's what we're doing with Poets in Residence, is providing a listener that provides listening, but it says poet, and it's not as intimidating. The listening is so powerful for people. Why are poets good listeners? Poets are good listeners because if you want to write a good poem, you need to do a few things. The first one is you need to be present. Now, Mary Oliver is one of my heroes. She's a poet. She's a wonderful writer. She died recently, R.I.P. Mary Oliver said, in fact, I've written down this quote here. The poet must not only write the poem, but must scrutinize the world intensely, or anyway, that part of the world that he or she has taken for a subject. If the poem is thin, it's likely not so because the poet does not know enough words, but because the poet has not stood long enough among the flowers, has not seen them in any fresh, exciting, or valid way. So why are poets good listeners? Because we know that to be a good poet, we need to be present with the things. We need to go deep on them. We're also constantly searching for analogies. Many great poems are centered around metaphors. They're saying, here is a thing that is like this other thing. I am telling you about love, but you can't just explain love because love is freaking crazy. But there's one part of love that you don't quite understand. It's like this other thing that you do understand, which I have listened to and understood, and you probably have also. And so I'm going to tell you about that, and then we're actually talking about love, so this is how it all ties together, and maybe that will
help you understand the world a little bit better, like poems often do. One more reason I think poets make great listeners is because we care a lot about what a word means. Words often mean three things. And as a reader of a poet or as a writer of a poet, you have to think about that. For example, in a sentence here, the word mean, I am using it in the sense of intent. The intent of the word is this thing. Mean also to a statistician means average. And mean to a fourth grader means bully. And so as a poet, we're listening to see what that person just said, but which was the one of the three meanings that they intended. So it may happen that we are able to watch a short video now. If we are, we will find the link is in the speaker notes for this slide, but if we're not able to, it will be fine. This is a video that I produced for the Innovation Hub at Sibley Hospital, and it talks about interview technique. And so we'll watch a little example of poor interview technique.
Hi, yes, please sit.
Oh, great. For the interview?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great, thanks. So I understand that you were at Sibley recently?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And for how long were you here?
3 days.
Okay, and is that 2 nights?
Yeah, I was inpatient, yeah.
2 nights. And why were you here?
Well, I had surgery.
Okay, so surgery. Great. Now, how did you sleep while you were an inpatient here at Sibley?
Not very well. But I don't usually sleep very well. So,
Was it noisy?
yeah. It was, I mean, I guess so.
And was there any beeping?
Yeah. Sometimes.
Like the machines?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And what about talking or voices?
Yeah. Like, you mean in my room?
Or from outside in the hallway or other people's rooms around you?
Yeah, in the hallway. Sometimes.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Just 1 second. Okay, sorry. So, now what about any other noises that were bothersome?
There was a cart, I remember, that was like really, well, I was gonna say creaky, but I don't know if that's the way it was supposed to be. But I just remember it was creaking.
It was loud. Okay, and so how would you say that compared to other like doctor's offices or hospitals that you've been in?
I mean, I know doctor's offices are supposed to be, they're noisy sometimes. There's things happening, so about the same, I guess.
Okay, about the same. All right. And last, we'd like to find out about some positive sounds or pleasant sounds. If you could tell me about a pleasant sound that you like to listen to.
Like the ocean? Like,
Sure.
I mean, I put it at my alarm clock noise.
At
It's
ocean?
Ocean, yeah.
Okay.
It's soothing.
Okay. I think that is all of my questions, so thank you very much for speaking with me today.
You're welcome.
So any thoughts about, from the audience, about what made that a good example of bad listening? Judy. Wasn't making eye contact, sure. Totally. So Marcelin said he's scoping, or she was scoping the responses instead of just being open-ended, what's on your mind, just saying the specific thing. Sure, Mateo said too many yes/no questions, yeah. Yeah. She was distracted, sure. What was she distracted by? Her phone, yeah, her phone buzzed and she went and answered it, yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna ask you to do an exercise now. It's called Listen, Don't Listen. So if you would please partner with someone sitting near you. So we're gonna do this for a couple minutes. You'll need one partner. So maybe Courtney, Jude, if you want to do, okay, you're cool. Okay. Okay, great. So I'm gonna ask you to please tell your partner about something that you're really passionate about. And they're gonna try not to listen. So go ahead and start, and I'm gonna give you about 3 minutes. So go ahead and wrap up your thoughts, thank you. And now I'm gonna ask you to swap roles and try not to listen. So now you're gonna be in the other role. Tell your partner about something that you're passionate about, and they'll try not to listen to you. Great, so same time and go. Okay, go ahead and wrap up your topic that you're so passionate about. Wrap up, okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do people find they were doing to listen poorly? Martha. Just like not even making eye contact, not even facing them. Yeah. Well. Oh my gosh, Judy immediately went to her phone and started looking through Reddit. Yeah. Anybody else? Just looking everywhere else. And you said it actually made you feel bad because she's telling something. She's a nice person. Yeah. Oh man. So she's talking about something, she's like building to a point here, and then you just break the flow and ask about something unrelated. What felt familiar in that as a speaker? When the time when you were the one who was talking about the thing you're passionate, what felt familiar? Not feeling good. You're talking about something that you care about and people are not paying attention to you. Yeah.
I couldn't figure out what I was talking about. So I was like, why should I listening? I don't know. I can't figure out where my thoughts might be off the track.
Sure, your train of thought went off the tracks because you were starting to not just talk about what you were saying, but wonder why was she maybe not listening? You couldn't be present because the listener was not being present. Totally. The thing that Mateo said about breaking the flow by mentioning something that was not related, that feels really familiar to me. It's funny, because I know that I do that often, especially when I'm walking with someone. Or walking and talking, blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, oh, look at that beautiful eagle on the top of the house. Can you believe the stone carving? And they're like, all right, I don't know how crucial that was right now, but I feel bad because I know that's a flaw for me. Okay. Any last thoughts on that exercise? That's the don't listen part. Now, part 2. Tell your partner about your passion, and they're going to listen well. So now I'm going to give you another 3 minutes. Would you please resume these roles, but your partner is going to listen to you well. And go. And as you may have guessed, we're going to swap roles now. So now you're going to be a good listener and let your partner talk about what they're passionate about. And you may begin. Okay, go ahead and wrap up your thoughts. And I hope everyone listening at home has been able to find a housemate or a dog or a cactus that's listening to them well. Great. Let's talk about that. What was different about this one? More fun, she said. Yeah. Why was it more fun? It's like talking to a friend. Yeah. Marceline? Feels like she's talking to a real person. Yeah. Mateo, did you feel like a real person? Yeah. Yeah. Totally. What were some specific things that you were doing differently as a listener? I'm going to mention a couple that I saw. Obviously, eye contact was huge this round. I saw people leaning towards the person that they're talking to. Like, that's the eye contact. You're facing your whole body really towards that person. Like, your body is essentially a spotlight that you're shining this warmth of listening on that person. You're facing them. It's not like you are turning your head like, hey, as soon as you shut up, I'm going to get back to my work. You're here, it's all of me. I'm here with you. What else? Yeah, small verbal responses, affirmations, often people call active listening. They're like, oh, ooh, those sorts of little verbalizations. One thing we find in listening, and especially in poets in residence, is that the quality of your listening affects the quality of their speaking. If you listen better, people tell you more. Like, there's something that, I actually don't know your name, but you mentioned, Jeanette, that you felt like you were losing track of what you were saying because the person wasn't listening very well. We find as poets in residence that the reason that our poets are really well loved in hospitals in this role is because they're honoring what people are saying. And people feel that and then very quickly trust the poet. They share things that are very personal. I've had many people tell me, I've never said that to anybody before. I have had multiple people tell me, I'm having an affair right now and nobody knows about it. And I have to process, I have to think about this right now, and you're the first person I'm telling. And that is a huge honor for me. But it is, I think, helpful for that person. And that is what our organization is about, is supporting nursing resilience, supporting physician well-being, supporting patient safety by providing this model of empathetic listening, by providing this one-on-one connection with people. In a hospital setting, it's especially important. When I talk about patient safety, I'm talking about correct diagnoses come from patients feeling like they're being heard, and so then they share symptoms that they might not have said before. Or, of course, obviously, and very simply, they share symptoms that they would have said before, and the doctor hears them. The doctor maybe wasn't listening before and didn't actually hear the person say, "My feet are swollen," because the doctor has so many things they're doing and trying to chart at the same time and trying to think about the variety of other things. Sometimes the patient shares things like social determinants of health or home issues that are not obvious even to the best and most observant doctor. The person might, if they feel heard, say, really the big thing in my house right now is that my son hasn't left the house in 3 weeks, and I don't know what to do about that. And the clinician can say, tell me more about that, and determine that actually the cause of the illness and the ailment that the person in front of them is feeling are because of the psychological impact of something that's happening at home with their child or with their neighbor or with their fear of crime or something that is much more complicated and potentially embarrassing for that person to share. We'll try a little bit of another piece of this video now. We'll just be brave and see if it is going to work well, and we'll, if possible, start at minute 7:15.
Watch for examples of the best practices we discussed.
Okay, that's going to be great, you know. Yeah. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Hi, I'm Liz. Nice to meet you.
I'm Frankie.
And this is Joe. He's a colleague of mine here, and he's going to be taking notes today.
Okay,
Okay, great. Please have a seat.
thanks.
Thank you so much for coming in and taking the time to speak with us.
That's my pleasure, yeah. I had a good time here, so.
Oh, good. I'm delighted to hear that. Well, so as I said, I'm Liz, and I'm a researcher, and what we're working on a project about is how sound impacts patients' experience here at the hospital. And so we're going to ask you some questions about your stay, and in particular about any sounds that you might have noticed. So that's what sort of we're going to be talking about. But we'd love to hear any comments that you have about your stay.
Cool.
And if there's any topics I ask you a question about, or any topics you don't want to discuss, of course you don't have to discuss them. So please feel free to decline, and everything is voluntary. So your participation is voluntary, and we really, again, appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. So
Okay.
thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
So let's just begin. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great, just to start out.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, my name is Frankie. I have 2 new hips.
Congratulations.
Yeah, courtesy of this hospital.
And how long did you stay here for?
Oh, about 4 days.
4 days. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you were here for those nights in between, how did you sleep while you were here?
Well, not that well.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I usually don't sleep that well at my house.
That's too bad.
Well, you know, you'll learn it one day. It's from being old. So, yeah, I don't think it was the hospital's fault.
But you didn't sleep that well. Is there anything that you did to try and, or did you talk to anyone, anything that you did to try and sleep better?
Yeah, I have these lavender patches that I use that are kind of like pleasant.
Oh, nice lavender.
Yeah, and I brought my pillow from home. I don't know if that's allowed, but I did it, so.
That's good. Well, we like for people to feel comfortable, so, and do what you need to do to feel comfortable. So were there any noises or sounds that that you noticed either while you were trying to sleep at night or at other times of the day that you noticed?
Yes, the freaking beeping, the machines. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like people talking.
You heard people talking?
Carts.
You said that there was a machine that started beeping, sort of like a melting down.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what happened there?
Yeah, I was a little bit freaked out about it. Because you wonder, you know, like,
Right. And how did you feel about that, like, interaction?
Well, I was kind of nervous. But then I was relieved because my nurse explained it, and once I knew what it did, I mean, he's really friendly. Everybody here is so friendly. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other pleasant sounds that you remember? Any?
Yeah, you know, there's I think that's called the Care channel. It's like one of the channels on your TV here. I put it on a lot. Even when I was just reading, it would be like the sound of a babbling brook or something. It's nice.
Oh, that's great. And how did that make you feel?
Relaxed. Yeah.
And why is that important?
Well, it's like it kind of makes me distracted in a way that I wonder, you know, it doesn't make me think of the pain so much. Yeah, so.
And so I think that's most of my questions, but I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to share with us, or any questions you wish we'd asked, or anything else you'd like to talk to us about.
You know, I thought you were gonna ask about the carts, those creaky carts. I guess it's like the brand name is Creaky Carts. Weird.
That is weird.
I don't know if they're supposed to creak that much.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Can I just say that the food when I got room service was delectable.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was really good.
I'm so glad to hear
Yeah,
that.
one day they had spinach and polenta, and it was delicious. Yeah.
Sounds so good.
Yeah.
I'm hungry right now.
Please tell the chef I said.
I will certainly pass that along.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for coming in to speak with us. I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you, Frankie, and best of luck with the rest of your recovery. I see you're really mobile now, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I could help.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. And may I validate your parking for you?
Sure.
Okay, great.
That would be awesome.
Thank you. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go.
Okay, great.
All right. So what we just saw was another clip from that video in which our interviewer, Liz, asking Frankie about the same things. What was your stay like here at the hospital? And tell me about the sounds that you heard in your stay. But it was very different from the first one. What was different about the second one? Video, let's just be acknowledged that it was crappy video just now. The playback was pretty rough, so it may not have been the smooth experience that you're hoping for. But anyway, I think you got the gist of it. As she said, eye contact. She greeted him by shaking his hand and explaining why he was here. Yeah, it's much warmer. Yeah. She had a note taker. She had a second colleague there. His job was just to sit there and take notes. Yeah, so you said so she could focus on him. Yeah, absolutely. Being comfortable with silence. So Liz asked a question of him. He started to answer. Maybe he kind of looked into the distance, composed his thoughts. Meanwhile, she's just sitting there and waiting. And he starts talking. He said something, offered something, and she's still quiet, just smiling back at him. And then he added something else because he felt like, oh, I have the space. It's almost like a gas expands to fill the space it's given. There is information in that person that she wants to get out. And if she gives it the space, it will come. one time, I'm not sure if this is relevant, but I'm going to say it because this wonderful memory just occurred to me. I was driving in rural Virginia where I grew up, and I saw a groundhog cross the road. And this was about 20 years ago. I was in college, and I pulled off the side of the road, grabbed my camera, my film camera from the back seat, and ran across this field after the groundhog. Groundhog goes to the edge of the woods, jumps in a hole, and I lay down right outside the hole and just put my camera up on my elbows and waited for like 20 minutes. And then this freaking cute as a button groundhog slowly kept out. Like, look at me. I'm like, it was so cool. I came back to school. I'm like, showing all my friends, like, look at this groundhog I took. Like, how did you do this? I gave it space. I was silent. I was a good listener. So let's talk a little bit about secret tips for listening pros. So if you want to be a great listener, here are some things that Liz did, and I suggest that you did, that are maybe not the most obvious. One of them is to wear an analog watch. I do it. You should do it. Here's why. An analog watch is only going to tell you the time. A digital watch can tell you text messages and things. If you look at your watch, and it is a digital watch, it is just like looking at your phone. And a person who sees you doing that thinks that you may be doing any number of things. If you look at an analog watch, they know that you're only looking at the time. And that is a respectful thing to do as a professional who has invited someone into your space, because you are honoring their time. Maybe you have said to them, I would like to talk with you for half an hour. And it is getting close to half an hour. And you want to say to them, I'm going to do a time check here. We have about 3 more minutes. And they'll say, thanks. I only budgeted this amount of time, so I am going to leave. I am grateful for you for giving me this permission to leave without being rude. Or they will say, don't worry about it. I'm having the greatest time. I got lots to tell you. We can go as long as we want. But because you said, I just took the time and we're getting close, they will feel respected and grateful. Looking at your phone or your watch to see what time it is it breaks the connection that you have with that person. And I know that may not be the most realistic suggestion. Some people get so much value out of their digital watches and their phones that they won't follow this advice. But if you want to be the best listener ever, actually maybe even put a clock on the wall. But an analog watch is a great tool. Next one is to listen with your face. So I think Jeanette mentioned, or was it Judy, talking about the active listening and the little verbal affirmations that you can give. You can do this with your face also, not just by saying out loud, wow, or or oh. You can do this with your eyebrows and with your mouth and with your shoulders. And the value of doing it that way is that it does a little bit less disruption of the person's flow. There will still be some, especially if you react with surprise. Sometimes they will think, oh, I did not expect that to be surprising. So that's weird. Am I weird? But if you do that along the way, I think the people find that warm and engaging and will tell you more because they see you reacting to what they're saying. That means you are following it along exactly. And the last one is wait in silence. We just talked about the value of just giving more space than you think. My co-founder of Poets in Residence, Kay, is a champion of this. She just sits there with this slight friendly smile. It's like just up from a neutral face. And when I talk with her, she asks me some question and then I answer, and she just keeps on, and I'm like, well, I do have another thing I could say, actually. I guess I'll just say that part too. And sometimes I am adding information that's really valuable to her, and sometimes I'm surprising myself with what I'm saying. But it comes out because she's giving that space, because she is a top-notch listener. really this value of being a good listener is, I think, that it builds trust. And with trust, so much is possible. Friendships, connection, business, and great design. If you are a designer, which I know many of you are, or at least are related tangentially to that world, your greatest hope is to know what your users think, what your users are trying to accomplish. That is what enables you to be a good designer. And if people trust you, they will tell you the truth. If people like you, but don't necessarily trust you in this way, they will sometimes tell you untruths because they want to make you happy. But if you are a great listener, if you especially can convey to them that you're not judging what they say, you are just hearing it and being with them and listening, they will tell you things that are so useful to you, even though they may suck to hear. Like, you produced this product for me and I wanted it to be blue. I wish I told you I wanted it to be blue. You made it red. Honestly, I'm not going to use it. But they might not tell you that otherwise. They might just say, oh, how nice. Thank you. Red. Great. Definitely going to wear this sweater, Grandma. I want to tell you a couple of stories about poets, poems that my poets have read. Okay, let me start the sentence again. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories about poems that my poets have written based on conversations in which they were great listeners. This one was for a person who has cancer at Sibley Memorial Hospital. And this poet was L. Klassen last summer. I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud. And I'm telling you right now that I'm only going to read you 3 poems, because as much as I love poetry, I know poetry is not as popular as it could be. So I think the rule of 3s applies well here. So don't worry, this will not devolve into a poetry open mic. But let me tell you about this one. This was a person who said, I was born in China in the year of the tiger. This person was about 60 or 70 years old, had cancer. And she said, you know, people in China, they don't like a girl that's born in the year of the tiger. And so it was a tough time for me growing up, being a young person, but I persevered. I did this thing. I lived and I had this wonderful life. And I've seen a lot, but now I have cancer and I'm dying. And I'm here for treatment, but it feels like I'll probably die. And this poet sat and listened to her talk about this. And what should this poem be about? That's what she talked about. Here's the poem. I like to imagine my birth as the universe experienced it. Promising, fiery, wild, and not that they're related, but maybe being extraordinary is worth the struggles. To be unwanted, yet so good at wanting, at achieving, conquering, always, regardless of scope. After all, when a tiger fights, she fights. And when a tiger dies, she dies. And to me, this is a really special poem because this poet heard her say, yeah, I might die. And that's the way these things happen. And I imagine there's a lot of people in this person's life who are probably saying, we're going to fight this. We have a new kind of drug we're going to try. Don't give up. I don't want to lose you. But this person said to this poet, when a tiger dies, she dies. And the poet heard her. Here's another one. This guy was sitting in the waiting room, and the poet was sitting in the corner with the typewriter and a table and a sign that said free custom poetry. The poetsinresidence.org. And no one was coming to talk to her. So sometimes that happens because we don't ever holler out like, hey, you in the blue shirt, come on over. You know you might not pop well. We'd never say that. We let people self-select. And I think that's really important for our model. And this guy was just not interested. And the host, the point of contact at that hospital, knew him. And he'd come there for treatment often. And she said, hey, you should talk to the poet. And he was like, I'm not interested. The poet's sitting there. She heard this conversation. Point of contact leaves. And she leans over and says, you know, I'm just sitting here. And he said, oh, you know what? I'll write. And he's an older gentleman. And so he talked to her. And he wasn't really talking about anything, just sort of like reluctantly, like engaging, kind of a gloomy guy. And she asked him, for some reason, the subject of his dog came up. Oh, she said, it's maybe something that happened recently that you want to talk about? And he said, yeah, my dog died. And she said, oh, yeah, that dog, I had it for 12 years, but really, it was really difficult when the dog died. Like I had this bond with it, and I feel so mournful now. And she said, oh, do you think you'll get another dog? And she said he just like his eyes narrowed and he laughed, the coldest laugh. And he said, yeah. And she felt terrible. She's like, oh my gosh, I think I just hurt his feelings. And he's like, okay, thanks for talking. You know, I'll go back and sit with my magazine over here. And she was like, ah. But a thing we do as poets in residence is we get the person's email address. We can follow up with them when the poem is done. We can send them this poem. Because oftentimes those people have left by the time we've written this poem. So she thought about it. And she wrote this poem. Nothing against you, but if you think that by getting another, I'll have replaced her, that I'll have fixed this, even alleviated it, then you just don't understand at all. And this is the poem that she wrote for him. And it's essentially just saying what she felt like she got from him that he had said, non-verbally. And she sent him that poem. This guy who did not want to participate, who was uninterested, let me tell you what he emailed her back. I hope you continue your creative, caring, and connecting service at this hospital. You've little way of knowing, beyond feedback such as mine, how unusually helpful you and the process of personalized poetry were. And this is interesting to me because she heard him, she listened to him, and maybe that wasn't apparent in the moment, but then she gave him this artifact. I heard you. And it apparently just blew his mind. I would never have expected that response. Here's one more poem for you. Oh, I got the clicker myself, didn't I? I forgot. Okay. Hey, double click. This is a poem that I wrote for a nurse. So this was at also Sibley Hospital here in Washington, D.C. And this nurse came and she was like a high energy, very detail-oriented nurse, a nurse leader for one of the units. And she came and she said, you do something about overcoming struggle? And I said, sure. And she said, you know, all the time I have these patients who come in and family members who come in and they're facing a really serious struggle and they start to despair. And I talk to them and I want to say, it's going to be okay, but that sometimes feels hollow and maybe not always accurate. Maybe it's not going to be true for them that it's going to be okay, but at least it will be over. And she said, you know, I really like the musician Michael Bublé. And I saw him on The View recently, or some show like that, Ellen. They're talking about his son, his child who has cancer. And my heart just went out to Michael Bublé. And so I wrote this poem for her. At the end of this path that's been covered by snow, on which brambles and thorns and the odd thistle grow, there's a bench you can sit on and breathe some fresh air and pick out the cobwebs and twigs from your hair. Perhaps you can't see it from where you are now, but you'll get to that bench one day. Trust me, somehow. And I asked her sometime later what was the impact of that poem, because I was doing a poster presentation about this project and I wanted to include a couple of testimonials. And she said, oh, that poem is framed right next to my desk, and I make copies of it and I give it to people. She was like, you nailed it. You really heard what I was saying. And that is so motivating for me with this nonprofit. The power of this listening, like the ripple effect that it can have, like to this nurse who, I don't know about you, but I see nurses as like these super strong pillars of healing. Like they just have this capacity to help people. Well, having worked in a hospital, I also know that it takes a toll. There's this concept of secondary trauma, that they are hearing and seeing these bad things happening, and it starts to wear away at them. And that's really exciting for me with Poets in Resonance, to see that I am having some impact there, making some kind of a difference that can help with nursing resilience or with physician well-being, to help these helpers be able to do their job better and also to be able to handle their job in some way. So the organization is Poets in Residence. There's a website if you'd like to check out more, poetsinresidence.org. I hope this presentation has given you a little taste of what we do and given you a sense of the power of good hearing, good listening, and maybe a feeling about what you can do to be a better listener and make the world a little better because of that. Thank you very much. So now I want to see if you all have any questions, because you've been such good listeners for me today and haven't interrupted my flow at all. So now let's open up. I see a question over there from Brian.
Yeah, just make sure my phone is on. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that I'm communicating from Lauren, who says, I know that a lot of communication is nonverbal, tone of voice, pauses, and so on. I am now thinking about how much listening is visual too, like using body in space and making eye contact.
Yeah, absolutely. So just the concept of listening being a visual thing, the cues that we pick up as speakers as to whether people are listening. It's kind of funny speaking to a group of sketchnoters because everybody's looking down. But I know this is how it feels like absorbing. When I was in college, I started a knitting circle. It's called the Activist Knitting Circle. And this I have not talked about in a long time, but every week we had a speaker come in, some sort of activist from the community. I went to Cornell University, so in Ithaca there's lots of activists. And we would do like a half an hour knitting lesson, and it always had like tons of balls of yarn and chopsticks actually, which are great for beginning knitters because they're not pointed, so it forces you to make larger loops, which is anyway, I'm getting too deep on knitting here. And so then the speaker would come and they'd start talking about what they did, what their sort of angle on social justice or whatever. And I prep the speakers and I would say, you know, it's going to look like people are not paying attention. It's going to feel weird because they're going to be looking at their hands and knitting. But if you ever say, what do you all think? Or do you all have any questions? Everyone's going to have something because knitting actually helps you be a great listener. I imagine much like sketchnoting, sometimes it can engage you at a higher level. Now, you just saw in my presentation, I advocated having a separate person to do your note taking while you're being the listener for somebody, but it can help. Any other questions? Yeah, Courtney. Yeah, totally. So Courtney said it's difficult to listen when you disagree with what the other person is saying. And if there's any advice on that. Yeah, so that's a challenge. I think the problem can be sometimes you're not able to listen because you're thinking about what you're going to say. You're thinking, oh, I just caught that flawed logic and I'm going to smash it down with my amazing logic. And you're holding that like, wait till the mouth stops moving and then I can say, didn't you read that other thing? So that's a challenge. I think you have to make that decision. Am I going to debate or am I just going to listen? And sometimes you're going to debate and that you're not going to be the best listener, but you might win the argument. Or you might change their mind. Secret tip, you're not going to change their mind. But you know, you're having beers and you're talking with someone about the upcoming election or whatever. That's just fun. If you feel like you can take that role of just being a listener and you hear in your mind a point that you want to add or refute, and then when the person stops talking, you've forgotten it, and you find yourself saying, I was going to say something so good, but now I can't remember it. Give yourself a gold star, because that means you left it so that you could continue to be present with the new things that they were saying. I find this works really well with family members that I disagree with, and they're saying something that's obviously bonkers. I now have changed as I have grown older and matured to, instead of trying to think like, how can I convince them? I just think, oh, wow, tell me more about that. How does it apply in this situation? And I make it a one-sided conversation. And then I divert and start talking about something like, I don't know, the weather or something, because that's a good thing for family relationships. As soon as they're finished, as soon as they're happy to finish talking about the importance of having guns in your home or whatever the topic is, then I'm like, oh, wow, it seems like a really nice day outside, but probably people would love pheasant hunting today on a day like this. Do you ever go pheasant hunting? How nice. Any last thoughts before we wrap up? Cool. The program has expanded to other hospitals, yeah. We have plans for absolute world domination, but so far it's been 3 months. We'll be in Inova Fairfax, who has a new cancer center. We proposed in residence there. We're working with Georgetown University Hospital, with actually there's about 9 hospitals we're talking about right now. University of Virginia Hospital System we're talking with, a hospital in New York City, a hospital in Canada will be in this summer, and hospital in Palo Alto. So if you know any, I am super interested. Yes, let's talk to that, totally. Also, if you know any poets that are good listeners. Great. Okay, well, thank you all so much for coming tonight. And thanks again to our host, WeWork, and to Brian for being a terrific facilitator.